You're listening to Big World Network.
Just Kill Me, Season 4, Episode 9, We Meet Again. Written by Wendy Herman. Read by Wendy Herman. We found it in a closet in the back of a small conference room after searching what felt like 100 offices and conference rooms. Apparently the one and only VCR left on the planet. It was on top of a small plastic bin marked ESK, Emergency Situation Kit. Every room in the headquarters building was required to have certain things that would allow survival in various scenarios, from loss of power to terrorist attack. The bin was on the floor, pushed under the bottom shelf, and the VCR was shoved all the way back to the wall on top of that. It was a miracle we found it at all. I was understandably concerned that the damn thing wouldn't work. Ty carried it out of the closet and set it on the conference table in the middle of the room. Trevor grabbed the end of the cord and plugged it in, while I found the proper connections on the flat-screen TV hanging on the wall and turned it on. Then Ty pushed the power button on the VCR. Nothing. Something occurred to me. I walked over to the door and flipped every light switch to the on position. All the lights came on, and a green light appeared on the front of the machine, and it began to whir. Ty tried to push the tape from his secret vault into the slot, but it wouldn't go. He cocked his head and then pushed the eject button. An old FBI training tape popped out. He quickly pulled it out and set it on the table. He slid his tape in and the machine swallowed it. The TV came to life, and a familiar countdown appeared on the screen. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ah, the old days when the VCR was the pinnacle of technology. Then static. All of a sudden, we were looking at Ty. A young, smiling Ty. He was so beautiful. I looked over at my 45-year-old Ty and grinned. He was zoned to the would-be looking glass. He was still beautiful, and more so with every gray hair and deeper line on his face. Holy shit. Ty did make a Hauser to Quaid tape. I had to smile. It was so him. Trevor was sitting on the table, staring at the screen, too. I had assumed he knew what was on the tape, but his face told me otherwise. I looked back at the TV, and the young Ty began to talk. Hello. He looked apprehensive and sad, but he forced a smile at the camera. My name is Tyler Ripley. This message is for Freya McKenna. He paused, trying to sort out what to say next. The three of us didn't move. The young Ty cleared his throat. I'm making this tape for you, Freya, he said sadly. And I swear he looked right at me, through the television screen, through time and space. It gave me goosebumps. Ty noticed when I wrapped my arms around myself to shake off the chill and walked over to put his arm around me. I looked up at him and smiled. He tried to give me a comforting look, but I could tell he was worried about everything. If you're watching, Frey, the young Ty continued, I know we agreed not to do this, not to leave any trace of what we are about to do, but... He looked down at his feet and ran his hands through his hair. When he looked up again, he had a strained look on his face. I guess you won't remember any of that if everything goes the way it's supposed to. And you won't remember me if Trevor keeps his word. And I know he will, but I had to tell you why I'm doing this. If you're watching this, then you've discovered something about your past, and, well, I needed you to know why we couldn't be together. He was silent for a moment, just looking at the camera. I could hear Ty breathing next to me. It had to be strange, watching yourself from the past, saying things you don't remember saying. My head swam just thinking about it. Trevor. Trevor stood suddenly at the sound of his name and opened his mouth like he was going to answer, but no sound came. Trevor, if you're there, and if everything has gone according to plan, I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you're going to do. Or what you've already done, I guess, from your point of view. He chuckled nervously. At least I hope everything has worked out the way we planned. Freya, if Trevor hasn't told you anything, and I know how you hate that, then he's kept his promise to me. He's a good friend to both of us, and I guess your husband, if everything is in place. He cleared his throat again and then took a deep breath. Okay, here it is. Freya, we were going to get married, he said suddenly, forcefully. Ty and I looked at each other and raised our eyebrows. Clearly neither of us remembered that important piece of information. You and I, he continued, signed up for a government project called Rip Van Winkle. It was an experiment to see if a computer enhancement could improve normal human reaction time, decrease the time it took to learn a skill from months to years to milliseconds. It was a program to see if they could turn already sharp humans into killing machines. They wanted sleepers that they could turn on and off and control. They recruited you and I. Well, I still think they only took me because you told them you wouldn't do it if they didn't. He grinned at us, and it was so surreal, I found myself grinning back. Anyway, that was almost exactly a year ago. Your dad was an agent on the project, some sort of shrink, who was given the job of evaluating candidates to make sure our brains could handle it. When he found out you were on the list, he tried to talk you out of it, but you convinced him to let you do it. You always did have him wrapped around your little finger. Young Ty looked down for a second, then back up at the camera, a very serious look on his face. They put implants in our heads, Freya, to turn us into assassins. We killed people for the government. Our government. I promise you they all deserved it, but that discussion would take up the entire tape, so, Trevor was our programmer. He invented the implants, and he is our best friend. He stopped, staring into the camera, staring out at us from the past, and I glanced at Trevor. He had locked onto young Ty's gaze, and his eyes were glistening. For the first time I could remember, he was producing real tears, though he fought to keep them from running down his face. Anyway, we were really good at our job. Apparently someone in Washington thought we were too good. The senator who backed RVW, some jackass named Dunwadler or something. Trevor snorted and I glanced at him. He smiled. You never could get his name right, man, he said to Ty, and then chuckled, which loosed a tear from his right eye. He quickly wiped it away, making eye contact with me for a split second before turning back to the screen. Young Ty continued. Well, he'd secretly funded the project with money he was supposed to spend on equipment for the war in Iraq. Someone on the Armed Services Committee got wind of it and threatened to ruin him. Dimwit had to get rid of us quick. So the word came down to terminate the whole operation. We were just fine with that, until Trevor got the order to terminate us. I closed my eyes and sighed, and Ty moved his arm from my shoulder to his side, and he took my hand in his, squeezing it tightly. The young Ty wasn't finished. He knew better than to try to refuse the senator. This guy's a real piece of work. I really hope he's dead by the time you see this. I rolled my eyes at that, if only. He's into all sorts of bad stuff, including getting our own guys killed in Iraq to serve his agenda. No one's ever been able to prove anything, though. Anyway, the three of us came up with the plan to fake our deaths and run for the rest of our lives. The only way to ensure our safety is to have Trevor erase all memory of the RVW program. And he's sure he can do it. After that, all it will take is a few bodies from the morgue and a car accident, complete with blazing inferno to convince the prick senator. Luckily, our names have been kept confidential, so we figure if we go deep enough, we won't have to change those. Young Ty took a few deep breaths before he continued. He looked so tired. It was easy to forget that this Ty, although his memories of making the tape were gone, was safe and sound in the year 2013 and was standing right next to me. What you don't know, Freya, or at least the Freya here and now, my Freya, I got a tingle, is that Trevor and I have made additional plans for your future, for all our futures, To make sure you're safe, I have decided that it isn't a good idea for us to stay together. Although it was obviously very difficult for young Ty to say, I suddenly didn't care. How dare he make a decision of this magnitude without consulting me? I didn't need anyone to take care of me. I never had. Who did this stupid kid think he was? And then he had the nerve to act so distraught over it? Really? Without realizing it, I let go of Ty's hand and stepped forward, closer to the screen. I wanted to reach through the television and strangle the guy. But like a typical man, he still thought he was in charge of the moment and kept talking. So I asked Trevor to take care of you. I asked, and then I gave him every reason in the book why he should say no. But he didn't. He's a great guy, Freya, and I know he'll be a good husband. I hope you can forgive me. I don't see any other way to keep you safe from what's-his-name. So I wanted to say goodbye. I've asked Trevor to erase all our memories of us, so we don't try to find each other after. I'm going to miss you. Well, I guess I won't if Trevor does his job. And you won't miss me either. All of a sudden, young Ty blinked several times, his arm abruptly stretching across the screen toward the camera, and then he was gone. Static. I was so angry I couldn't move. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned slowly, and Ty was there, his eyes full of compassion. He held his arms out to embrace me, and I stepped forward and punched him in the face.
You're listening to Big World Network.